What's up, SDS Nation, and welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that brings you the very best guests in all of true crime. And today is no exception. It is week 3 of the double murder trial of embattled former attorney Alex Murdaugh. Murdaugh, of course, is accused of killing both his wife Maggie and son Paul at the family's Colleton County property back in June of 2021. And that is just a fraction of the story. Our best guests today are truly best guests. The woman in red. For 18 years, Loni Coonbs worked as a criminal trial attorney, prosecuting over 50 cases, ranging from murders and gang cases to sex crimes and DUIs. She's also a veteran legal commentator. You've probably seen her on TV before because she's been everywhere on CNN, Investigation Discovery, Oxygen, Today's Show, The View, Access Hollywood, and of course, our friend Dr. Phil. Loni is also the author, and I love this. I'm going to make my wife read this. You're perfect, and other lies parents tell, the ugly truth about spoiling your kids. I would never spoil my kids, and I wasn't spoiled by my lovely mother, although she would argue against that. Amy Lawrence, with what looks like a water cooler behind her, and that is her husband's office, even though it is a paper shredder. She fights for the civil rights of the wrongfully accused every day in her practice. She handles civil rights, police brutality, and misconduct and criminal defense docket at the Lovely law firm. That is her hyphenated last name, Amy Lawrence Lovely. She was on MTV's Teen Mom 2 and has also appeared on the Dr. Phil Show. And last but not least, I don't think she's appeared on the Dr. Phil Show, but she's one badass attorney, Amy Zimmercheck. She graduated with honors in the second class of the Charleston School of Law in May 2008, where she was a member of the Law Review and Moot Court Board. She's also a graduate of the National Criminal Defense College in Macon, Georgia. She's the owner now of AJZ Law Firm, LLC, and she was voted a member of Super Lawyers continuously since 2019, and she's had over 10 not guilties on felony cases, both murder and rape, since 2009. So she is the real deal. Please follow us. Some housekeeping notes on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We're at Podcast STS. You can also find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. Please support us at Patreon. And as my 7 and 8-year-old daughter, because they started to fight that I was only naming one of them, they both say to subscribe and hit that like button. It gets the algorithm chugging. So that was a lot. You guys have impressive bios. It takes a long time, but we are through the most difficult aspect. Amy Zimmercheck, let me start with you. I had on 2 men yesterday. Danny Cevallos, who's an NBC and MSNBC analyst, and I had on a criminal defense attorney, Jack Swerling, who's a big name in South Carolina, and they both question the prosecution. And because of that, I got a lot of angry mail today. Is the prosecution on the right track, do you believe, at this point, especially considering now that these financial crimes have been admitted into evidence per Judge Newman?
So to answer the initial question, no, I don't think they're on the right track. Jack is a very good friend of mine. I've known him for years. We call each other cell phones all the time. And it's frustrating as criminal defense attorneys to watch the state, the prosecution, kind of bumble through all of this. And I think Amy and I were talking about this earlier today. Instead of like realizing where the defense is going and how they can use that to their advantage, but they're just keeping on that headline with the financial crimes. And I'm not saying that the financial crimes aren't a part of it, but to make that the motive is just, they don't need a motive. And I know juries want one, but I think that the defense is hanging their hat on what the prosecution is trying to do, like trying to make this round peg fit into this very square hole, and they don't care about the consequences. So it's incredibly frustrating, especially because I want him to be convicted because I'm tired of him blaming my guy.
Well, and your guy is Curtis Smith, otherwise known as Cousin Eddie. We'll get to him in a little while. You are representing one of the key figures in this entire saga. But Jack Swerling is no joke. I mean, he's been a criminal defense attorney since 1973, tried many big cases. He was a former partner of Dick Harpootlian. People were emailing me and saying, oh, he's biased. He's a defense attorney. But he's also a realist, I think. And there is a thirst, like you just said. It's no lie. There's a thirst, particularly among people here at STS Nation, who want to see a conviction in this case. But there are people like yourself out there who are saying the prosecution might be sliding off that proverbial track. Loni, you're a first timer on the show. Very nice to have you. I love the red suit. So one of the things that Danny Cevallos, who's an NBC and MSNBC analyst and also a criminal defense attorney in his own right, he talked about prosecutorial overkill and worried about admitting this financial evidence because of that, saying it might overwhelm the jury and you don't really need this motive per se, which is what Amy was just saying. What is your take on all this? Is the financial evidence critical to winning the case, or is it going to kill the case because, as Danny says, it's overkill?
So when I'm watching a trial, and I love to watch trials like this, I love to feel like I'm in the courtroom and I watch every minute of it. And I don't miss a second of it. I'm constantly looking at what would I be doing at this point as a prosecutor? And I agree 100% with Amy. I think that a lot of what the prosecution's doing, they're following their little checklist. They're not watching the big picture. They're not seeing the theories that are being thrown out by the defense here and there all the time, just dropping them right there in front of the jury, and they're not picking them up. And they're also not even listening to their own witnesses in the response, because sometimes they say something so good. When Miss Shelley was on the stand and she said, he told me to say 30 to 40 minutes, I was so upset. I called my brother, who's a police chief. Why? Why did you call him? Well, we never got, that was such emotional, powerful testimony. We missed it. As far as the financial crimes, yes, I think that it is good evidence to show context, not motive. I think when you hold it up and say, this is motive evidence, everybody's like, great, this is going to tell us why he did it. This doesn't tell us why he did it. Motive would be he had an insurance policy, right? Because we all understand from Dateline and everything else, and everybody's asking us, did he have insurance policy? If he did, boom, motive. But this financial stuff is just showing that, yeah, he had a lot of pressure. He had a lot of things going on, but we're also learning at the same time that he'd been going on like this for years. And he always thought at some point he'd get caught, but he was still going on. And why now would he explode by horrifically murdering his wife and son? That doesn't make sense. What they should be saying is, we're putting this in as context. And the judge even gave that to him. They said it doesn't come in as context. And every time they get close to something that would show a financial benefit, which is what they need for motive here if they want to do motive, what did killing these two people translate into financial benefit for him? That would be motive that the jury could understand. They got close to it. They started talking about Maggie's inheritance or, property that she owned. Okay, killing them, that might have got him a financial benefit. Or we got something from Mark Tinsley, who said, I was going for $10 million or whatever. But as soon as he became the victim of a vigilante, jury trial off the table. I was going to settle for whatever I could get. Okay, that's a huge financial benefit to him. That kind of thing is what the jury can understand as motive in this case. Right now, all this financial crimes that went on forever and ever and ever, one, it's really only context. And two, that defense team is just sitting back and racking up on the clock how many hours go by wasting. Because the closing argument, they're going to say, we spent more time on the financial crimes than how these murders were committed. So what do you think they're really trying him here for? They're trying him on the financial crimes. You don't have enough evidence on the murder. And that's all going to go, towards the defense argument.
And lest you think that Loni Coonbs doesn't know what she's talking about, these are some of the cases she's covered. Jodi Arias, Warren Jeffs, Oscar Pistorius, George Zimmerman, Casey Anthony, O.J. Simpson, if you've ever heard of him, Phil Spector, George Floyd, Bill Cosby, Ahmaud Arbery, Johnny Depp, Amber Heard. She's covered quite a few big cases. Amy Lawrence Lovely. Loni brings up kind of an interesting point. Do prosecutors and criminal defense attorneys get such tunnel vision in their preparation, as I do sometimes with this show, that they forget to ask follow-up questions when there is riveting testimony? of course, Loni was talking about Miss Shelley. Is that a trap that you guys get into sometimes?
I do not. I do not get into that.
Except for Amy Lawrence Lovely. Does anyone else ever get into that trap?
I say that, and you see it more with prosecutors than you do defense attorneys, especially those that are trained like trial lawyers. We're telling a story. We have a theme. We're trying to get to the feelings of it, that kind of thing. And prosecutors, they're checking a box, right? And they're not reading the room. They're not reading their jury. They're not listening to the evidence. They're just going to the next question and making sure they're hitting it and checking it off. And so, when you talked about Miss Shelley, I've discussed this at length because yesterday was a game changer for me. Amy and I've talked about it. I've talked about it with everybody today. But with Miss Shelley, it was like this missed opportunity for the prosecution, because when I saw her little lip quivering, I don't think she's afraid, like physically afraid of Alex Murdaugh. I don't think that's it. I'm technically not the best lawyer, but I know people, right? I know juries, and I'm pretty good at it. And one of the things I realized is like her little lip was quivering because she felt so torn, right? That she loves the Murdaugh family. But she knew what Alex asked her to do was so wrong that she had to tell somebody. And here on redirect, we have the prosecution going at her like she's a hostile witness. And here's this angel of a little woman who spent 30 years working at the school, who now is like a little home healthcare nurse and taking care of little dying people. I mean, they don't come any better. She's put her kids through college. She's this wonderful person. And here was this like huge moment. Like all that prosecutor had to say is, Miss Shelley, I would have went over to the jury box and I'd say, Miss Shelley, look at me. Because that's signaling to the jury. Don't let him intimidate you, because I can see that that's the way it is, and you don't have to say it. You just say, you look at me, and you just tell the truth, and you're not in trouble for anything today, right? You're here to tell the truth. And that's all we could ever ask of you. And we're so grateful that you're here. So let's talk about it. Where are those tears coming from? Because this is the deal. We can all understand that people that we love do bad things, right? People that we love. And those aren't mutually exclusive, right? So like, that was the real meat and potato. Like that was the filling. That was the nuggets of gold. And they just completely fucked it, for lack of a better word. You know what I mean? That's just what it was. Like this huge missed opportunity. I was talking to, I think they're losing all credibility. I think they're losing credibility. And it really hit home because sometimes I have like the defense attorney hat on and I think I'm being too biased. But I was getting a bunch of stuff clocked at the courthouse today. And I was talking to the clerks of court and I said, what do y'all think? And they said, Amy, they're not proving anything about a murder. They're proving everything about a financial crime. And last time I checked, he's not on trial for the financial stuff. And he's kind of admitted it, and because we've got these confessions of judgment that says, I did it and I owe him this money civilly. So, he's admitted to it, but he's fighting this murder case. And it's such a horrific crime, but we're not hearing, it's like, she said, all those guns that they put in evidence, and not one of them was murder. And I think that's it, right? We're not seeing anything. There's a bunch of gunshot residue on the inside of a raincoat that they found. But Miss Shelley yesterday said it was a blue tarp. It wasn't a blue rain jacket. That wasn't it. And okay, you're at a hunting lodge. What else are you going to get at a hunting lodge except a bunch of gunshot residue and a bunch of cartridges that match from the same gun? I think they're losing credibility.
Yeah. So Tuesday started off with defense attorney Jim Griffin, who works with Dick Harpootlian, reading a transcript of Shelley's testimony from the day before, wanting to strike that testimony from the record. Judge Clifton Newman denied that, saying that the defense's objection Monday was that the gunshot residue evidence is prejudicial. Newman disagreed with the defense, denied the objection. But Loni, to you, did she appear scared to you? Because I got some tweets and some emails saying, look, this is part of the problem with Colleton County and the Murdaughs, is that they were a dynasty and people were afraid of them. And here's a case in point. Did she appear scared? Should the state have made that point stronger?
No, not to me. Now, I was reading it through the screen, but I agree with Amy Lawrence Lovely. I thought the reason why this witness could be so powerful, the prosecution, is because she clearly was loyal to this family. She was emotional because she said she loved the family and she was taking care of Miss Libby. And then Mr. Randolph, who she also lived there with, passed away. And even when she testified that, Alex was asking her about her wedding and how expensive that can be, she said, that's because he's such a good man. I mean, that's the way she sees him. Now, as far as evidence and bringing out the fact that people are intimidated by the Murdaughs, I think that what really showed that, if just one case in point, is the search that was done of the house, the residence at Moselle. The next morning, they had a search warrant. They could have kicked everybody out and done a thorough search, which they really should have done. But instead, they said there were 20 to 25 people there. They were really upset. They didn't want to offend them. So they just did a consent search, and they literally let, I forget which one it was, but one of the law partners follow the deputy or officer, whatever agent, all the way around. Like, how thorough of a search is going to be done when you have a law partner following around? They didn't say a word about it. Now, why in the world was a search conducted? You can't even call that a search. So that's where I think there's more, it looks to me at least like influence, that they might be intimidated, which also, goes against that they were focusing on Alex Murdaugh as a suspect that early. I think they were just like standing off and not really wanting to do anything to offend them at that point. But I do wish that the prosecution would sort of make that point more as to how that influence impacts different parts of the investigation.
Amy Zimmercheck, I had, multiple jury consultants on, and they talk about the importance of storytelling with the jury. Is the state lacking this? And it sounds like you believe they are at this point. And if you could talk to the state, if you could have a conversation with Creighton Waters, what would you say to him right now?
Well, I have the benefit of being able to talk to the state often, and they're not listening to me. So I'm literally like, what? We're not watching the same trial. So it's incredibly frustrating because, like, even to Lonnie's point earlier, that they're not listening to their witnesses. Not only are they missing gold, like, you were so scared or you were so shook that he had asked you to do that you called your brother, who's a police officer, right? They're not even listening to that part, much less they're not even listening to their witnesses. So the witness will get up there and say, my name, like, introduce yourself. My name is so-and-so. I work for SLED as a so-and-so. And then their next question is, and where do you work? And it's like, like, literally stop looking at your page and focus. And so
it's interesting that you say that, just because in my business, media, you see that a lot too. And it is like, it's media 101, and it's listening. I tell everyone to be the best interviewer, which I am far from being that. But if you want to try to be the best interviewer, you've got to be the best listener. And I think that lends itself to a lot of other careers, including defense attorneys and prosecutors, but they are not doing that. Didn't mean to interrupt.
I think absolutely. I mean, I think that there is a story to tell. I do think that the context of the financial crimes, wherein he has no problem lying straight to the faces of people that he loves and continuing to tell them lies, like, that is important. And you can, Creighton keeps, like, with a lot of people that don't, so you really didn't know Alex Murdaugh, then if that's your thing, because no, I don't believe anybody knew him, because I do believe he had multiple things going on in his life that he was different people for. But take that you didn't know Alex Murdaugh and use that in your opening, and then weave that, like you have been throughout all of your witnesses, to show that you may have thought he had money. You may have thought he was trustworthy. You may have thought that he loved his child so much that he would never kill them, but you didn't really know him, and they could take that. What I believe is a strong theory of their case is that nobody really knew him, and weave that in. But I mean, they missed I think we talked about this before, just so underwhelmed with both of the openings. And those are so, everybody thinks closings are important. Openings, I think, are the most important. I mean, that is your roadmap for this trial, and it helps the jury know where they're supposed to look. And, right now they don't even know what they're looking at. in my opinion.
And Amy,
I
let's
think
just
that's
get
the
it out.
problem, though, real quick. I think that's the problem. But the thing is like, I don't think they know what that theme is, right? I don't think they know what the story is. And I think that's the problem the jury's going to have, right? Because, you know, the why is not as important, but it's not as important. Like if we could all put this in context, like, okay, it was a pressure cooker. Things were going on, you know, something could have happened and like he lost his shit in a moment, whatever that might be. But we're not getting any of that. It's just a bunch of random shit in random places. And it's not telling a cohesive story. And it's driving me insane because we're 3 weeks in. I haven't seen the only evidence that I've really seen that makes me think that he's guilty is Michelle, right? And then the phone records. We know that he was there. And that's it. I mean, after 3 weeks in, I think we should have more than that at this point.
Well, if STS Nation is any indication, they all think he's guilty and say that the money is enough of a motive. And we'll get into some of those comments in a little bit. But Loni, it looks like you were chomping at the bit there.
I agree 100%. And when the prosecution doesn't have a story, doesn't have a theory for their case, it makes the jury uncomfortable because it makes them feel like the prosecution's not sure of their case. If the prosecution can't come in there and say, I know beyond a reasonable doubt, this is what happened, there's no way you can ask the jury to find the same thing. The interesting thing is the one place that the prosecution really seemed to come up with a snappy story was in the financial crimes. When the CFO was testifying and they kept asking over and over again, you had to pay this back? Yeah. Why? Because he stole it. You had to pay this back? Yeah. What? Because he stole it. I mean, they said that, 30 times? That was a story. That was clear. And they were adamant about it over and over. They've done nothing like that with any of the case that goes to actually how the murders occurred. And I agree with you. The cell phone testimony is important, but also that Snapchat video that places him at the crime scene when he lied about it and said he wasn't. That to me is like that. The prosecution needs to be really focusing on that stuff.
Hammering.
And I'm glad Amy is here with 2 E's because she clarified what is a Snapchat video, what is not, because there's a lot of confusion. I brought that up, Amy, in a show, and I got peppered with people not pleased. Didn't think I was telling the truth, and I said take it up with Amy Zimmercheck because that video right before. I think at 8:48, where you hear his voice, that's not the Snapchat video everyone was talking about, correct?
Right. That's right. That's actually at 8:44, and that's a cell phone video that he's taking for Rogan, the dog owner. And then the Snapchat video, which is at 7:56, so it's very close in time. It's at 7:56, and they're out in the fields, so we know that they had to come back from wherever they were. But at 7:56, the Snapchat video shows him in a completely different outfit, and by completely, I mean he changed his shoes as well. So you know the difference is the clothing in the Snapchat video, and then his voice in the cell phone video.
Can I tell you something that doesn't make sense to me? That Snapchat video of him with the tree and they're laughing, right? Mm-hmm. It's really bright daylight at that point. And at 8 o'clock in South Carolina, it would have been dusk, right? The sun would have been going down because I looked, it was like the sun went down because this is the rabbit hole I go down. I mean, the sun set in South Carolina on that day around like 8:44, which explains how dark it is in that
well, so it was right? An hour before that. It was an hour.
But we would have seen the sun. I mean, it was really, really bright. And I may have missed it. And Amy, you would know this, but like, do they have they know when it was uploaded, right? The video, but was it taken on that day? Do you know what I mean? Because you can upload a video that was taken the day before. That's funny.
Yeah. And I thought I think the Snapchat person already did testify, but
testified is when it was uploaded. I didn't hear anything about
if
it was like the metadata when it was taken because it could have been.
Yeah, it was also taken that day. Yeah,
that's an interesting distinction. Loni, go ahead.
I just want to ask Amy one quick clarification because I know that the early one was Snapchat. I also thought the second one that was done with the dog on his camera that he also uploaded that one to Snapchat. Did he not? It was just directly sent to his friend. Okay.
Yeah, and actually, I don't know if his friend ever got that video. Actually. I think there's some. I think Rogan was questioned about whether he even got that video, and I believe that he testified that he never got that video because that video occurred at 8:44, And then by, I think it's 8:59 or maybe it was 8:49, both cell phones had lost all of their activity. So, I mean, I don't even think that Rogan got that video.
And if you're a juror, you also have to decide which time of death you're going with, because the state says the time of death was 8:50, I believe. The coroner says it sometime between like 9:06 and 9:30. Loni, how important could that be potentially? You have to figure out, when did he really die?
Yeah, well, okay, that's the problem with these timelines and trying to fit all this data together, which is why I wish, honestly, that the prosecution was doing demonstratives as they go along, laying out all of the evidence as it comes in. Okay, this is what the cell phone data says. This is what this is. This is what the Snapchat up here. This is what the camera video. So lay it all out and then talk about that time of death, right? Because there's been all sorts of times of deaths mentioned, in the media before now, and I still don't know clearly when the prosecution is going to say the time of death is, right? So I'm still waiting. We haven't heard from the medical examiner. We're still, waiting for more information about it, but we're on to the financial crimes. So, we still need that information on the timeline. But yeah, all of that can be very important because remember, the defense is quickly all along, well, not quickly, I'm sure they've been planning this, but they're taking the same data and writing an alternative theory to it, right? Like they're taking the cell phone data from Maggie's cell phone and they're saying that, her phone is being thrown out in the field at the same time that we know that Alex is, at the house climbing into his car. So they're taking the same information, and interpreting it differently. And the best jury instruction for defense attorneys, which if I was a defense attorney, I would love it, is that one that says, if there's two reasonable interpretations, one for guilt, one for innocence, you have to vote innocence. And that's what the defense attorney is doing. They're just dropping these alternative interpretations down there for the jury to pick up.
They're dusting up reasonable doubt. We have to take a sharp left turn for 1 second with Amy Zimmercheck. So if people haven't been watching STS Nation and Surviving the Survivor, shame on you. But Amy is representing Curtis Eddie Smith, otherwise known as Cousin Eddie. There was talk he was going to testify today, Wednesday. You wouldn't be here if that was the case. Can you tell us what's going on with your client right now? Have you asked him what he thinks of the trial so far? What can you tell us?
Obviously, I'm limited in a lot of what I can say. With him, but I can tell you that he's not, just because he is in jail, so he doesn't have 24-hour access or really any decent amount of access to TV, because he is also being kept in solitary confinement. So no, he hasn't seen it. Obviously he meets with me and I update him as I can, but that's also, it's incredibly frustrating for him to not be able to see it as well. I think that he would love the financial crimes coming out just because he's so angry about what Alec has done to him that he just, he just wants the whole world to kind of know what a dirtbag he really is. Because he didn't know that at the time too. I mean, even when he got involved in all this and his name came up, he was still trying to protect Alec because interestingly, maybe it was Ronnie Crosby, one of the partners today, was testifying. I was driving from court and I was listening to it as well. And Ronnie said, Alec was a really good lawyer in that he could really read people emotionally and kind of know how to make them feel a certain way. And I thought to me that was powerful testimony because I want the jury to understand that, because I've seen a lot more and probably more than they're ever going to see. And without some cohesive story, I think that things like that from people who have known him and worked hand in hand with him see how manipulative he is about little things, like why to go back to Lawrence's question of like, why lie about being there at 8:44 when there's a video? I mean, you saw him taking the video, which, like I've always maintained, I think from the first time that I've been on, is that the fact that there's that video at 8:44 and then Paul's untouched, uncracked, unbloodied phone perfectly laying on his butt cheek when Alec admitted to getting his phone is because he wanted to erase that video. And so it's, there are things that they could focus on that don't revolve check after check after check.
And Amy Lawrence Lovely, part of the testimony, and I could scroll down to find it here, from the person who was Alex's friend and former law partner, said that Alec really knows how to use emotion to his advantage. Does that make the jurors rethink these tears that we've been seeing flooding down occasionally?
I mean, I think that's going through everybody's mind. Is this like genuine emotion, or is it like a show? You know, what I got out of Ronnie, his partner's testimony today, because I didn't really understand what I thought there was going to be like this aha moment, like you can't handle the truth moment. Because the way they were dancing around it, like in the pretrial and in camera, they weren't going through. Like I was just like, oh, here's going to be it. Here's going to be like the moment. And then it didn't come. But I think what we got out of that was, I think that Mr. Crosby did that because he's trying to save face for his law firm. That's what I got out of that. I think he genuinely loved Paul, right? He loved him and he thought a lot of him. And there's something, I think there's a little bit, I think there's two things going on here. I think one, he's trying to save face for his law firm because let me just tell you this. I've said it 100 times. I don't understand how I find it funny that this law firm only finds stolen money when it's stolen from them. Right? Because I have a trust account. Matter of fact, it's all this stuff back here. And you never write a check to Forge. Forge only writes checks to you. That's part of the whole deal. If not, you've completely fucked up the whole tax sheltering of it, right? For people, for it to grow and all that stuff, like children and stuff in structured settlements. So the checks never come to us. I'd never deposited the check from the insurance company. It goes to Forge.
By the way, just to interject for 1 second for those who are getting lost, because I read through this, Forge is basically a company that's based, I want to say, in Georgia. It's a tax shelter system for
it's all completely legal. It's for like a lot of things. We have children or people who that it'll end up killing them because they're on drugs or something. So what you do is you give the money to Forge and they guarantee they're going to invest the money and they guarantee certain payments out at certain periods of time. It's great. And that money can grow interest for the interest can be tax free. It's a great thing, right? For clients, especially children in structured settlements and stuff like that. It's a good thing to have. So, but what we know as lawyers who do personal injury, and we do a lot of it, you never write a check to Forge. Forge only writes checks to you. If not, it defeats the whole purpose and it opens up a can of worms with the IRS that no one would ever want to open, right? So they should have known when they saw checks going through their firm being written, but they don't see those. They only find it when somebody's stealing money from them. And I think that's a big problem. And then you see them on these body cams and in these interviews, they're all up in it, right? They're all up in Alex's stuff, walking through crime scenes, putting their fingerprints everywhere, DNA. I mean, it's crazy. And I think that him getting on the stand was a PR plug for them, one. And two, I think watching this trial, he probably feels like Miss Shelley, right? Because you could hear him like stuttering through it. And there was a genuine love for all these people involved. And he knew that he lied. And he felt like he had to probably come forward and say it, just like Miss Shelley felt like it. Because you can love people who do horrible things, right? They're not mutually exclusive.
And so that comment from Ronnie Crosby on the stand, he said to the prosecution that he was good at making people believe that he cared about them, which is interesting.
That's also what makes him that's what made him such a great trial lawyer, right? I mean, that's part of my gift. I love people. Like I always say, I'm not a great lawyer. Ask me the rules. I defer to Amy Z. But if you want me to win over a jury, they're going to call all my jury members, call me after a trial. Ask Amy. She'll tell you all about it. And they tell me if I ever get in trouble or if I ever need a lawyer, I'm going to call you because that connected with them. That's a gift. That doesn't mean that he's manipulative. I mean, I think he turned it into something bad, but it could also be something really great if he'd done good things with it. But I think that it gave them insight into he can turn it on when he has to. And he did in these financial crimes. So he could do anything.
Well, it made me immediately go back to those moments where he was sobbing on the stand and wondering how genuine those tears were. But Loni, to you, Ronnie Crosby said something else. He actually got emotional when speaking about the murders. And I think this is important. And maybe this is a case where the state should have kind of honed in more here. Ronnie Crosby says, I didn't know this was going to be so hard, meaning the murders on Alec. And why I think that's interesting, the state said Amy,
That's
am I
not what he
wrong?
meant. That's not what he
Okay.
meant.
No,
Okay, I'm sorry. I misunderstood it then.
I think
Explain it then.
Yeah, I think he got emotional when he was testifying, and he's saying, "I didn't realize it was going to be so hard to testify. I thought I could come in here and get through this," and he was very, very emotional. Yeah,
I think especially when asked about Paul as well.
Yeah,
I stand corrected.
You know, interesting as an outsider to South Carolina, it was such an interesting exercise to try and read Ronnie from where he was coming from. I feel like, yes, one was he wanted to make sure people knew that as soon as he knew something was wrong, that I said, you know, F this, we're going to, you know, kick him out or whatever, and make sure that he came across, you know, like the good guy. I think his feelings for Paul were genuine. I did not get why he kept calling the defense attorney Jim, and you know, like they were practically, you know, commiserating for each. I almost felt like they were going to go hug each other some part. I mean, it was like, Jim, I mean, you know, we're friends, and you know, it was like, this is the defense attorney. You're all attorneys, but just answer the questions. You don't need to keep reminding everybody that everybody's friends, and you know, I don't know. I just thought that was very.
It is the most that area. Like, well, we have a very small bar in South Carolina. We all know all the players involved in all this stuff. Maybe not as intimately as they all knew each other, but we all know these people, right? And I think it's a reminder that how incestuous this thing is. Like, I've always believed that Alex Murdaugh is involved in something way bigger than all of this, right? That we don't know what that is. And I think that Dick Harpootlian is representing Alec, not because he wants to. I don't think he wants to do this shit. I mean, he just got an $88 million settlement, right? The last thing he needs is $1. I think he's doing it because he controls the narrative and he keeps him from going off the rails and talking about stuff that'll get him killed or other people in a lot of trouble.
Well, and additionally, I don't know if y'all caught it today, but very early on in his testimony, he said, or when he was asked about Mallory Beach and if he knew or something about Mallory Beach, and Mallory Mom and the two other girls that were on the boat. So all three of those girls worked for his wife at her boutique. Mm-hmm. What he didn't go further with and could have, I think, is that so after Mallory died and the two girls were still working at the boutique, Alec asked him to get involved to fire those girls because they wouldn't change the narrative about who was driving the boat. And I thought he was going to go there today, and he said, because he took a long pause, he said, but all the girls worked at my wife's boutique. And I thought, oh, here it comes. And then like nobody asked him and he didn't say anything. And I was like, but that's who Alec is. Like, he wanted to put pressure on those girls. So he asked you as your law partner. And now, of course, he said no, and I won't get involved. But you still could have been the hero. But like, why not show that side of Alec?
Told the full story, right?
And yeah it's not the full story.
Yeah. They're pulling their punches right when he gets some good stuff.
Because they still love him.
Yeah.
There's a part
I
of
agree
him
with that. Lonnie, to you, you're sort of, go ahead, Lonnie.
Can I just follow up one question? When Amy Lawrence Lovely, when you said that Dick Harpootlian was doing this because he didn't want him to get killed and more people to get hurt, are you talking about Alex getting killed? Who getting killed?
Yes. Well, I don't know about him getting killed, but what I mean by that is like he can't drag everybody down with him, right? Okay. He can't go off the rails. He can't go off the rails and spill all the tea and drag his law partners in because they're all
judges, right?
Yeah, people all the way from here to the upstate, right? All these attorneys, because let me tell you this: in that county, you don't bring a lawsuit unless you co-counsel with them because they own that county. And by own, I mean they wrote a check for $1 million to finish the courthouse. Literally, wrote a check, stroked it, didn't even like hesitate. There's a lot of money going through here. And they get very large verdicts. And people don't, and insurance companies understand that more than anybody. They do not want to go in there and get popped and get a bad faith claim, right? Because then they've got to pay it all, even though it's above the insurance policy. We know this. So if you want to bring a case in Colleton County, you associate. And Ronnie Crosby was a living example because he got up there and he testified that the majority of their cases were co-counseled cases because they got the results that needed to be gotten.
And I mean, Grandpa's portrait had to be taken down from the courthouse. But I've gotten some interesting emails and comments and tweets, etc., saying it's not a good look for South Carolina because it's all old white men on both the prosecution and the defense. There's no diversity, no women. It's just Creighton Waters and his team and Dick Harpootlian and his team. And Loni, you're the outsider here. Does it go to does it kind of hammer home the point that this is an old boys network, even through this trial?
I think that speaks for itself, although there is one female attorney on the prosecution's team that I've seen so far who does well. But here's the thing that really hits home to me is anytime there is a woman on the stand, to me, and maybe I'm just extremely sensitive about this, to me,
right.
her questioning of the women is so much more patronizing and boom, boom, boom. Even today with the GSR expert, at one point he's like jumping on her. She's answering. And by the way, he was asking the wrong question. He kept asking about the particle, not swab, but whatever else, the whatever. And instead of what he should have been asking, how many particles? And she's like, you're asking the wrong question, buddy. And he started jumping on her like she was stupid. And it's like, these are your own witnesses. Just because they're women, why you can't help yourself? What is it? I don't get it.
Amy Zimmercheck, how much is that going to rub the female jurors the wrong way? Or because you think so, or because they're in Colleton County, they might be used to it? And I don't mean that.
I don't know. I haven't seen it. In fact, tomorrow, I'm going to be down. I need to go just to get a sense of the jury, the courtroom, so I can advise my client as well. And so I haven't yet seen the jurors for myself. But I was going to correct you, which Loni did. There is one female, and her name is Savannah, and she's a brand new attorney, and she has the sweetest little Southern accent. Wow. I mean, it's a thick Southern accent, but she's a strong woman, and Amy Lawrence can tell you this. Like, we are all about like building women up, even when we don't like them. We still, because it's so hard for us in this profession, and it's embarrassing for the state. Not only for the lack of diversity, both sexual and of race, but it's just embarrassing. It's embarrassing for the state otherwise, because I tell you, and Amy always says that she's not a great trial attorney, but I've seen her in trial several times, and she's great because she cares and she's passionate. And, I will roll my eyes, but I know that I've had success because I spend almost every waking hour, and that's like generally for me about 20 to 21 hours a day working. I literally sleep maybe 3 hours, but what's frustrating to me is not just that lack of diversity. It's just, like objection that's improper. Like, they don't even know the rules. They're not asking the right questions. They're not listening. They're just all up there waving their little, dinglings around part, and it's just like, yes, we all know you have them. That's great.
Let's measure them. Mine's bigger. Let's get over it. Right.
We know the judges is the biggest, the two of you, whatever. But like, can we stop that? And just like, it's embarrassing for me as a lawyer in South Carolina, because this is not like,
it's not good lawyering.
We tried a case 2 years ago, almost at this point in October, and we put our heart and soul into it, and you could tell that we were prepared, we were structured, we were organized. We got a not guilty on a murder. I mean, we did it, but it was all part of our plan, and we worked really hard. And it's so frustrating to feel like that they're not even working hard to even listen to the answers and put forward the best case. So to me, that's what's embarrassing for the state. Yes. In addition,
Amy, I just time coded 4343. They're waving their dinglings around. That's my hook shot. That's my opening shot for the show. You just made it nice and easy for me. One quick thing, juror 5. It's funny when I have you guys on, I always feel like I'm on Adderall, and I've never taken Adderall in my life, but I feel like I'm just wide awake, ready to go here. And you never know what F-bomb Amy Lawrence Lovely is going to drop, which is always reminds me of this lady who has taught all her grandchildren every curse word. So juror 548 was excused for the day. It was kind of in passing that we find that out. He is currently in the emergency room. Any reason to be concerned about this, Amy Lawrence Lovely, or is this just the nature of a trial?
Par for the course. I mean, and we were in the middle. They have how many alternates do they have, Amy?
6.
That's
They
an
had
amount.
6. Now they have 5.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's why you have all these alternates, right? Just for this reason alone. And I mean, it's par for the course. We had someone's mom pass away in the middle of our last trial. I mean, we always have something kind of happen because that's just life. That happens. But I do want to go back to this about this whole like man thing. When I was talking to the clerks today, they said, well, first of all, they're not very good lawyers. I just expected to be dazzled because, we hear all this stuff about Dick Carpullian, right? There's all these fancy lawyers and no panties were dropped in the making of this trial. I think we can all agree to that. Nothing, I wasn't dazzled. I didn't see any like jazz hands or anything.
Mark that time. Yeah.
They all went into it with the confidence of a mediocre white man. Right? That they were just going to go up there and Dick was going to be Dick, right? And he's going to do his thing and he's fancy and he's a senator and all these things. And it's not working. And then we've got Creighton. He's going in there because he's regime. He's a prosecutor who's only given the same opening statement 100 times, right? He gives the same one every time. I'm honored to represent. That's a duty I'll take and a burden I'm willing to shield. And you're like, that's stupid. And everybody just kind of like this is going to be the trial of the century, right? This is what they've labeled it on in the media. And no one even thought through, they put more thought into their outfits than they did what they were going to say. That's insane.
Well, Amy, it's interesting because Amy, you said you were down at the court today. Just in general, when you're talking to people on the ground in South Carolina right now, what is the overall sense of the way this is all going?
They think he's guilty, but they don't see any evidence of it. Their gut tells them that he's guilty, but they're not seeing anything that proves it.
Amy Zimmercheck, is that what
Lonnie,
you're saying?
No, Lonnie. I got to hear what Lonnie has to say.
Oh, Lonnie, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question on all of this, because there's theories from outside, and one that I hear a lot is that the prosecution is throwing the case for whatever reason, that they're just kind of, phoning it in because they don't really care or don't necessarily want a conviction. Do you get any of that feeling, or are they really just not that?
No, they're just that bad. I'm telling you, I will have conversations with some of the prosecutors and their team, and they're like, it's going well. And I'm like,
are we watching the same trial?
But it's not. And I don't think it's a problem.
Going great for a conviction on financial crimes.
Right. Well, and they say things like, I don't think it's a problem. I don't, they're not, they're definitely not seeing the bigger picture, and it's just incredibly frustrating for trial lawyers, I hope, to be watching this, because this is not, even Marsha Clark, bless her heart, and Chris Darden at their worst were not this bad. And it's just incredibly frustrating, because this is not representative of our state. We have incredibly great trial lawyers here, and this is not an example of it.
If they were trying to throw it, Alan Wilson wouldn't be sitting at the table, because he's going to try to make a run for governor. And if they were trying to throw it, his big old head wouldn't be sitting back there.
That's a great point. Yeah.
By the way, is throwing, I know you can't prove it, but is intentionally throwing a case by the state, is that illegal? Is that a crime?
Yeah.
It's absolutely a crime and multiple ethical violations, right? But yes.
Okay.
I would argue it's accessory.
So I want to get into some of the particulars from Tuesday, and then we'll get to some comments from STS Nation, who is clamoring for a conviction. But as we talked about earlier, Jeannie's second juror is now taking the stand twice. She was on the stand Tuesday. She was on it last Thursday. She is the CFO, Chief Financial Officer of the Parker Law Group, which is formerly Alex Murdaugh's law firm. And at 10:11 in the morning, to be precise, on Tuesday, she says, I think, and this is a direct quote, I think Alex was successful more not from his work ethic, but from his ability to establish relationships and to manipulate people into settlements and clients into liking him. So he did it through the art of bullshit, basically. This sounds like something Amy Lawrence Lovely would say. This, to me, is the kind of thing, because jurors, I found out, are not allowed to take notes. This would grab my attention. I'm a media guy. And I would say, wow, this guy's a bastard. And I would put that in my limited brain. But again, Amy, since it sounded like you saying that, is that the kind of thing that, again, the state should have drilled down on more, that he was doing this all through the art of bullshit?
No, I mean, if we don't know anything, he was doing all this through the art of bullshit, right? But that bullshitting doesn't make you a murderer, right? But I mean, let me tell you what I get from her. She's the only person I know who can be CFO. Millions of dollars can be stolen, and she's still the CFO, right? That makes no sense to me.
Yeah. Well, for how long does anyone guess?
It is common sense that you never write a check to forge. And you didn't pick up on it until they were stealing it out of your pocket, right? Into your bottom line. You didn't care when it was everybody else's. Like, that's what I get out of that. And I think she comes off, she's pissed, right? Because she was responsible. He made her look like an idiot. And she's willing to do and say whatever it takes because she's angry at him. She looks like the Karen of CFOs. I like her. I know why she's pissed. I get it. But on the other hand, she takes some kind of responsibility. You were the last call. You were the one that was like, was she a CPA or something? Like, she knew better, right? You knew better. You knew the whole point of, you don't, like, again, you don't write checks to Forge writes checks to you. And she didn't catch up on any of it until
I remember even before these murders were committed, even before, when we started to hear about some financial crime rumblings, Amy and I were like, how can we lose $10 million in a law? Like, how can a law firm be missing upwards of $10 million and never notice it? I mean, that's insane to me.
I have a client who has had a check for $23.27 out of my trust account that has not cashed it in like 3 months. And I literally call her every day. Will you please just go cash it? Or write me an email to give me permission to donate it to like a nonprofit, something, because like because let me tell you something. The one thing that they teach you when you get out of lawyer school, and I call it lawyer school because it doesn't sound so pretentious when you say it like that. But the one thing that they teach you when you get out of law school is one rule. You do not fuck with your trust account. Okay. That is the rule. Yeah. You do that, you will not have a bar license. Your $200,000 education and all those years of studying and the bar exam and all that stuff is down the drain if you mess with your trust account. And so to act like nobody knew what was going on is insane to me.
So, Loni, to you, on Tuesday, 10:49 a.m., to be precise, I like to be precise, Jeannie Seckinger, the CFO, testifies about confronting Alex, and she did it on June 7th, 2021, which happens to be the day of the murders. I think this is sort of pivotal testimony, and again, wondering if the state blew it here. She says Murdaugh gave her a, quote, pretty dirty look and asked what she wanted. She explained she has reason to believe that Murdaugh was stealing money and that he needed to prove that he wasn't. Keep in mind, she testified last week, but it wasn't in front of the jury. So she's basically repeating a lot of the things now that these financial crimes were admitted into evidence. And then the conversation is cut short because Daddy Murdaugh, Randolph Murdaugh III, which sounds like the guy from Gilligan's Island, Thurston Howell, same sort of name, wasn't looking good. And he died a few days after the conversation. Anyway, Seckinger goes on to say that after the killings, Alec wasn't working much. And when he was acting erratic and taking pills. But should the state I don't feel like they've drilled down enough to say, look, this is the point where Alec just snapped. This is when it all happened. I confronted him. He was up to his eyeballs in stealing, taking stuff from one account, stealing from Peter to pay, from Paul to pay Peter, whatever the hell the expression is right now. But my point is, again, is the state missing an opportunity here? Because at least from an emotional standpoint, it seems like this is the day all hell broke loose.
Well, yeah, but it's confusing testimony, let's be honest. I mean, the way they laid out in the opening statement, it was going to be like the day. Here they come, they confront him, they say, we're missing all this money, we need it. And that was the thing that set him off. But now we know, because we've got so much financial evidence, that this, there was a lot of stuff going on, and that actually they'd caught him, moving money around and hiding it before, not necessarily stealing it, but she wasn't necessarily saying that day either. And he'd just pay it back, and it's no big deal. So it really took out the big oomph of it being that day. Plus, the defense and cross-examination pointed out that, because of the father and what was going on with the father, he probably wasn't going to be, because everybody loved the father. He was in the hospital. He was terminal. He was going to die. Sure enough, he died 3 days later. Why did he have to kill them that night? And then if you're saying it was a big snap, well, the way this killing went down wasn't like a snap, because whoever did it cleaned up quickly and took care of it quick. I mean, there was some planning in this. So how could that be a snap? So there's this stuff, but it's all conflicting. And that's where not having that very clear through story from the prosecution, they can throw this stuff out, but you're not getting the big oomph from it, because it's just all mushed in with everything else.
Yeah, that's interesting. So about this missing $792,000, they asked Jeannie Seconder about this, and here's her quote. "We were just worried about his sanity." This is after the murders. "We were just worried about his sanity, so we weren't going to go in there and harass him about money when we were worried about his mental state and the fact that his family had been killed. It just wasn't even on our mind at that point." This, I think, Amy Lawrence Lovely, plays into what the state is trying to say, that he committed these crimes to basically gain some empathy, deflect attention, whatever it is. Because she's saying right here, we didn't want to bother him because of the murders. Again, it's there, but I don't know if the state is connecting it for the jurors to take that home for a conviction.
So if this is our motive, we are to believe that this man, who by everybody, even the people who didn't like him, was a wonderful father, right? Mm-hmm. Great father, loved his kids, did anything for them. And as a mother, this is the part that I can't get there. That he killed okay, and I always say this, the shit was out of the donkey at this point, right? Yeah. The lawsuit had been filed with the Beach family, right? The money they'd been found out, the money was stolen. So he goes and blows his son's head off in the most horrific of ways. He executed him and his wife to get a continuance on the Beach case, to get the financial information. He's a lawyer. He knows that the case doesn't die with him, right? It will continue on. And to get some sympathy and buy him a little bit of time to come up with the $700,000 that he's going to owe no matter what. Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
And the defense came in.
Mexico, but you don't blow your kid's head off.
Yeah. And Amy Zimmercheck, I know you're working as we're doing this podcast. You never stop. But Griffin says, the defense counsel in cross, to Jeannie Seconder after this all comes up, and he says, and I quote, "But your mind didn't go to, gosh, I think he killed his wife and son because I asked him about the Ferris fee, right?" And she says, no, which counters the whole
She didn't want to say no. She didn't want to say no so bad.
She did not want to say no. And I'll tell you, her testimony was different. I'm sure you can tell the difference between her testimony without the jury. She was straight up full on Karen mode. She softened it up a little bit. And she and Jim, I think, both softened their approaches towards each other, because it was evident that neither one of them liked the other. But it was better today. I thought Jim did a much better, smarter job of saying, and you're upset and you have every right to be upset. And her upsetness, just like Amy said before, it wasn't because he stole money from clients. It was because he was stealing money from the firm / her bonuses, but I thought he did a much, much better job of making her, making that whole thing together. And even so, she didn't, she still, as much as she hates Alex, she could not even go as far as the state's wanting 12 people who don't know him at all to go, which it's dangerous.
And after that,
if she ain't buying it, the jury ain't gonna buy it.
After that,
she hates his guts.
I thought that was some of the best cross-examination we've seen in the trial. I thought that question was spot on. Yeah, it really just hit it home.
But after that reluctant no, she goes on to kind of kick him and says he fooled a lot of people, like I said, myself included, and said no. And shamefully, when we did talk with clients, they talked about how much they trusted Alex and how much they thought of him and how they thought they were shocked and confused by the fact that he had manipulated and confused them all those years. My mother loves the expression a master manipulator. It seems like Alex Murdaugh certainly was one. Loni, what did you make of the GSR expert at the end of the day on Tuesday? Her name is Megan Fletcher. She's has been in SLED since 2007. Basically, gunshot primer residue was found on the white shirt. Particles were also found on the cargo shorts, and then I think it was on the seat belt buckle, and then on the inside of that now infamous blue jacket, she testified there were 38 GSR particles from the inside of the jacket, which is described as a, quote, significant number. How important and damning is that GSR evidence?
Well, I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never wanted my case to hang on GSR. I just don't think it's that great of evidence. I mean, because it's so easily transferred. And Alec had the perfect excuse here, that he ran and got a gun. So though that could explain for the particles, just the minor few particles on his clothing, or, it could be from that, it could be because he changed his clothes, whatever. It's not really persuasive evidence there. The interesting thing is about inside that blue jacket, but the defense did a good job really kind of shaking up, trying to connect that to the object that he was bringing in that night. Otherwise, it could be, look, in houses around in that area in South Carolina, there's probably lots of jackets that have GSR on them. The fact that it's on the inside of the jacket, and when you look at that jacket, it's like a poncho almost. It's not like one that's going to be open, so you wouldn't necessarily get GSR on it if you were just hunting, having it mostly on the inside and only like a few particles on the outside. So that's probably the strongest thing to argue that there were weapons carried inside. But I still don't think, what I hope is that the prosecution doesn't take these weaker pieces of evidence and just nail, really try to hammer them home, because I think it lessens their credibility. They should be focusing on the stronger pieces of evidence. This is something to argue. But if you're going to say, oh, because he had a few particles on him, that could be one way or the other. It could be the gun that he picked up, or transfer or whatever, that kind of stuff. I don't think is that strong.
Well, listen, I feel like everyone's having fun, and I'm going to push my luck. We're going to take some comments and questions from STS Nation, go a little bit longer. Amy is probably filing something as we speak. I got to get her work ethic, man. Look, there she is. Amy Lawrence Lovely, I know you don't work as hard as Amy Zimmercheck.
Hell no. Let me tell you something. I will drive to Columbia sometimes and make her go to sleep. I will drive up there. I'll be like, I've called the courthouse. You're not going. I've told them absolutely not. We're continuing everything today. You have got to get some sleep. You cannot work 3 days straight.
Amy, how do you work?
She was ready for a trial last week, and she was ready to go. And then they offered a sweetheart deal, and he took it.
Yet she makes more money than I do.
Amy, how do you work? That's always the case. That's always the case. That's always the case. How do you operate on 3 hours of sleep? I can't operate on 22 hours of sleep. How are you operating on 3?
It's a long story. I was in a car accident in 1998, and I think that kind of altered my brain chemistry. In my defense, I did go to a bachelorette party this weekend.
Oh, good.
Which is why you see me drinking out of the disco ball, because that's all I have.
Hey,
it's water.
At least they're still having fun in South Carolina. And by the way, Loni, I think I read you grew up in North Carolina, so you're not that much of a stranger to all this.
No, I was 5 when I moved away, though.
Oh,
but I did.
All right. Well, you got some of it in your blood.
What part of North Carolina?
Winston-Salem.
I'm from the High Point, so I know exactly where that is. Where my dad grew up.
See, we're all one, except for me. Lisa Orvin, 8974. First comment. Here we go. the prosecution should really hit hard on Maggie. I'll toss this one to you, Loni. The prosecution should really hit hard on Maggie's text messages to a friend where she states she wonders what Alec was up to and didn't want to meet him alone, and she never did go see the dying father-in-law. That was his reason to get her back home. I think the quote was, there's something fishy going on or something along those lines. Should, once again, the state have focused, or should they still focus more on these text messages from Maggie to her friends in those final moments?
You know, I don't remember the exact language, but I thought in the opening statement, they built it up to be like, oh, it's going to look like he's luring her out there, right? That was the word. And when I read the actual text messages, it didn't sound like that as much. It's kind of like he wants me to go over there because his dad, you know, is sick and in the hospital. He wants me to go. And then when you read the other stuff going on, it doesn't look like there's really anything nefarious going on between her and Alex. So I don't know. I thought that it wasn't as strong as the prosecution sort of laid it out to be. I didn't think that it really looked like much luring going on. I did think it was weird that if the reason she went out there that night was to go with him to the hospital, and then he ends up going to the hospital without, well, actually goes to the mother's without her, and, you know, texts a few times, but doesn't drive by to see, hey, do you want to go with me? I thought that's something that's kind of, you know, inconsistent, but I didn't see any real strong evidence of luring her out there.
This next question comes from a friend of the show, Tilo, who likes to yell at me. I think she's from the Boston area, and she's got some tude, as my kids would say. She writes, I cannot believe it's so hard to wrap your mind around the fact that this guy killed his son first, by the way, and then his wife after, for exactly the reason the prosecution is saying. So to you, Amy Lawrence Lovely, Tilo wants to know why it's so hard for you to wrap your mind around it, or is it just the fact that the evidence is not taking you there?
I had this like really, I would be I curse and I have bravado, but a big part of that is I feel everything, right? Really, I have very big feelings about everything in life, and I would probably be a puddle on the floor if I really let myself feel those things all the time. But yesterday I found myself, after the testimony of Miss Shelley, I found myself, matter of fact, I feel like I could cry right now just thinking about it, right? I think about as a mom, and I have a husband who adores our children. And I guess I see Alex as, it could be, you know, you could be my husband, right? You could be any of my family member. And the idea that someone who by all accounts love their we don't want to believe that they could hurt their kid like that, right? And I think that's the really hard part. And then we're not seeing anything that's given us like this closure to it, this definitiveness. It's just all a bunch of shit, right? But that feeling of like, how much I love my children, and there's nothing in the world that could ever, I mean, I would die for them. I would never kill them, right? I throw myself in front of a bus or a gun or whatever it takes to save them. And my husband feels the exact same way. But there's this piece of me that's like, I just can't wrap my mind around this because it didn't solve a problem for him. There's no life insurance money. For sympathy and a continuance, he's a smart guy. I mean, he's an asshole and he's a liar, but like, and he steals people's money, but like, that's a really big jump. And there's too many other things that just doesn't seal the deal for me. But there's this piece of me, and I keep trying to get to that feeling. And then I don't know if it's like, maybe I just see myself like he could be part of my family, right? Or my husband or somebody that I love. And I just can't wrap my mind around that part of it. And it's that part that's pulling on me. And I think that's probably going to be the part that's going to pull on this jury. Because we're not seeing this like definitive, he did it and this proves it.
Loni, every time someone says something along the lines of what Amy Lawrence Lovely just said, I immediately go to that, what I call the dogtail video, where we hear Alex's voice and he's at the scene of the crime literally minutes before it occurs. And how do you rationalize that? I mean, if it really happened at 8:50, he had to be there and hear something, right? How big? I mean, that's, to me, that's kind of like the linchpin in this case, at least, for the state side, and getting the prosecution, the jury, I should say, to convict here.
I think that is the strongest, so far, the strongest piece of evidence that I've seen from the prosecution, because it literally puts him there within minutes, according to the prosecution's theory, right? Because the phones all, lock off like at 8:49 or something, and that's just a few minutes before that. It also seems strange, though, to think that he could be yelling at Bubba. I don't know. Does he already have the gun in his hands? Is he? I actually, the way I interpret it is, I don't think he necessarily knew that video was being taken, because remember, his voice is sort of further away and he's talking to the dog. So I don't think he necessarily knew. I think that's why he kept nailing down, I wasn't at the kennels. I don't think he realized that video had been taken. But the other thing what Amy was saying is, you look at that video, and this is why I think that video of him at the tree is so helpful to the defense, because here he is just having this wonderful time with his son, right? I mean, they're laughing and they have a great relationship, and that's literally an hour before too. So, although I always think, okay, men, are planning to kill their wife and they sleep in bed with them the night before. So you never know what's going on in a murderer's head. But it's hard when it's talking about a father and a son that clearly had a very close relationship. It's hard. It's hard to wrap your mind around. But you said that timing is difficult for the
that's like the flip side of the argument. Hey, look at that other video. They were laughing and joking, like you said, and they had a great relationship.
Even in that video at the dog kennel, they're laughing and talking about like Bubba getting a hold of the chicken or something like that. Like, this is not like a contentious moment. This is not somebody in the background going, "You mother effer, I can't believe you did that." Like, you know what I mean? This is like a family interacting like a normal family. And I think that's the hard part.
I think the hard part is that people are trying to rationalize completely irrational behavior, and probably as a benefit to my career, because I'm very empathetic. I'm very emotional as well. But there are times when you're looking at cases that you have to realize that I've seen people kill people literally like hugging them. Being friends, being whatever. And then something occurs within a very short time period, minutes even, and they will kill those people, family members, kids, drug dealers that are friends. Just because they're drug dealers doesn't mean they're not friends. People they've been dealing drugs with their entire lives. They're close to those people, but I've seen them kill them. And I've learned that, especially for me, is because I want to help jurors get to that point, usually because I'm on the defense. I want them to be to that point. But when evaluating the case, you have to look at the impossibility of rationalizing completely irrational behavior.
Yeah. But also, like, after Miss Shelley's testimony yesterday, like I said, that was the game changer for me, that I shifted like 75% guilty, and I did that because you just can't explain away all that shit. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The time frames, the asking people to lie for you, the change of the story, the gunshot, you know what I mean? Like, it's like there's just like a little bit of something ain't right the whole way around. And there's just no way in a million years that all these coincidences could happen.
And that's what the state calls substantial circumstantial evidence.
Right.
Well, and that's what the state has to do. They literally have to put every single one of those things out there very clearly for this jury, so that they can piece it all together too. And I do have a question for you, Amy. I've been told over and over again, this jury does not have notebooks. They can't take notes. Is that true or not true?
They can.
Well, no, jurors are allowed to, but I won't know until I see it for my own eyes. But it's my understanding.
Listen, they always say in South Carolina you can't have notepads. Every jury that I've ever had, and I've had a bunch of them, and Amy has too, they got notepads. They just can't take them home with them. They become property of the court.
It's my understanding that I think that maybe last week he finally gave them out, though. I don't think that they had them the first 2 weeks.
I kept hearing that, and I'm like, I'm taking notes. How could they remember any of this without notes? So I'm glad if that's true.
Long deliberation. Yeah.
You can keep saying
I asked Jack Swirling yesterday, who just had lunch with Dick Harpootli, and he says they don't have notebooks. Whether that's true, I don't know, but that's who
I'll find out. I'll email you. That way you'll know for sure.
Yeah, because I've asked a bunch.
I will know tomorrow for sure.
Yeah.
Some people said, some said they had to leave him with Judge Newman, but Jack Swirling said no notes. And I heard that from another longtime criminal defense attorney, Kim Varner, who I had on the show, said no notes too. And to me, I'm like, whoa, that's crazy, because I am I'm a note taker, you know, otherwise I'm just for me, then I'm just remembering the emotional testimony, and that's it. I'm not remembering any of the detailed evidence in the case. There's no way. I mean, I just don't have the attention span, and I don't know if 12 jurors in this day and age do either. But another comment here, and this is in reference to having Jack Swirling on the show and Danny Cevallos, an NBC and MSNBC analyst and a criminal defense attorney. And this woman, N. Gilbert, told me she couldn't finish watching the show. She was so frustrated. She writes, either I have a severe case of confirmation bias, or I think your two guests are dead wrong. And I sure as hell hope so. I'm thinking the jury wants to know why the hell he did this. His financial mess certainly is a good reason. Maybe Maggie didn't want to sell her beach house. She wanted no part of that. The only way to get that was to get rid of her. Paul clearly is a huge problem too. But Amy Zimmercheck, not enough, I guess, for you.
So I like I've always said, it's hard because I'm a true believer, diehard defense attorney. I've never worked in the prosecution's office, although I've heard I should. But you know, I am a true believer in rights, and as much as I know about him in this case, and as much as I just personally believe that he is guilty of it, I just don't think that they're doing. I just don't think that they're doing the job right now. I want them to. Don't get me wrong. I want them to, but I just don't think that they're getting it done right now.
So, Loni, why doesn't the state say exactly what C. Celiac posted on my YouTube comments, which is Paul was being sued for the boat accident. He was racking up big lawyer fees. He might end up having to pay huge fines. Alex Murdaugh has been hiding his financial problems, won't be able to pay. Maggie may not have known their financial situation was that dire. Fact that she refused to sign the beach house to Alex Murdaugh, that escalated his anger. Alex Murdaugh thought both Maggie and Paul were his burdens, and if he knew Maggie was planning for divorce, his financial catastrophe was going to be exposed. Those are the motives. Should the state just get up there and read that comment?
Well, they have to have evidence of it.
They could have done it with one or two witnesses.
That's minor, Loni.
Not 3 weeks of it, right?
Well, that's what I've been saying is I don't think that just the fact that he had all of these, you know, that he had this history of stealing money from the firm is going to be enough. I think that they need to show that there was some financial benefit to him to do these killings if they want to put on a motive. Now, all that stuff that was raised in that note, I've seen, you know, reported here and there, but I've not seen any evidence of it. And so far, I haven't seen any in the trial. You would hope that if there was something like that, the prosecution would be putting it on and arguing it. But, you know, I don't know if it's because the evidence isn't there or because the prosecution has decided that's not the important part. I don't know. At this point, I don't know. I think I'm kind of lit with Amy. I don't think they're getting it done now yet. I'm hopeful that at some point they'll start making it clear for the jury before it's too late. And that, you know, they're able to tie it all together and really present the evidence and the theory in the strongest manner possible. Then I think there's, you know, hope, but it's not being done now. And that's the problem.
Amy Zimmercheck, Jack Swirling, your good friend, and now mine, I hope, in case I need a defense attorney in South Carolina. He told me 2 weeks left in this trial. Is that right, you think? Are we on that timeline?
Maybe longer.
I'm going to start asking the magic disco ball, because
is there alcohol in that magic ball still?
No, unfortunately, it's the water that Amy makes me drink. But but no, there needs to be. You know, I think it's already gone on too long, and they really haven't put that much evidence in. So I think that my client's testimony.
They put a lot of evidence in. There's not even any like relevant evidence put in. Yeah,
right.
I'm no attorney, but I said from the get-go, there's no way this thing, the end date is supposed to be February 17th, and I say there's no way. That's like the end of next week. There's no way that's happening.
I mean, my client alone, I think will take more than a day, to be quite honest.
That's a week from this Friday, I believe.
Yeah, that's why I was just looking at the date, although it's literally right in front of me on this laptop. But yeah, I definitely think it could last at least 2 more weeks, at least. And that is, I just don't. And I mean, and that's just the state's case, by the way. I think that the defense has a full on witnesses. I think that I and I may have told this to Amy. I think that I thought Alex Murdaugh was going to testify. Now that the financial crimes have come in, I don't know if that's going to change unless he just gets up there. I mean, he's already dead to rights and admits it all. So that may change, but I still feel like they are bold enough that they will put him up.
If he's the narcissistic piece of shit that everybody says he is, he's going to put on a show. Let's see it.
I absolutely think so. I think he's going to boo-hoo. I think that that's going to take another couple of days. So even just with my client and with him, I think
Hold up. So you're both Amy's are saying you think that Alec is going to take the stand?
Wow. Absolutely. I think he is.
Wow.
I think
wow.
What do you think, Loni?
I think because I agree, he's so narcissistic. It's just like nobody thought Elizabeth Holmes was going to take the stand. I said, "Are you kidding? She's so narcissistic. Look at all the people she got as donors. Look at Alec. Look at all the people. That's his talent, is getting people to believe in him and trust him. And all of those clients that he got while he was screwing them on their money behind their backs. But he believes that he can." Woo anybody, including that jury, which is 8 women, and I also think for the defense, I think that the advantage to it is he can explain why he lied about not being at the kennels. I think that's going to be a huge question for the jury. I think he can get up in there and say, yeah, you know what? I did all that financial stuff. I did. I screwed up. I'm sorry. It was terrible. But you think
I take responsibility for that? I have taken responsibility.
What's he say about why?
But I did not kill my kid. Right.
Well, what's he say about why I lied about where I was?
He was so upset. He thought it would look bad.
I just watched my kids' brains get blown out.
All the things. I didn't want to think about it. I wanted to. Yeah, I think, and that's one of the only things that no one's commented on. Like, because at first it was his defense team was saying ironclad alibi, which as soon as I heard those words, I was like, oh crap, he does not have an alibi. Honestly, before any of this started, that's the first thing I thought is, oh, he doesn't have an alibi. And then, as their evidence, because, clearly they weren't told everything, as the evidence starts coming in, then they're the ones that have been directing the narrative. So this is, the one thing that's going to hurt him is, we've seen, I think, the 2 statements that he's given. There's at least one more coming, which is further removed in time, which also he, still doesn't bring up that, he doesn't clarify that. So I think that's a problem. But I still think that if he gets up on the stand and he looks those jurors in the eyes and says, because those were my last precious moments with Paul. That's what I wanted to remember, not seeing his brain next to his body. I think that he is skilled enough to play that. I mean, I put defendants up a lot, and I know that people don't like to put defendants on the stand. I love it. I think it's, and especially when they want to go and they listen and they're smart, yeah, I don't put them up all the time, but this is a case that if I were defending this case, I would absolutely put him on the stand.
Well, I mean, I've said since the very beginning, if they convict him, it will not be on the evidence because their gut feels like he did it, right? And the only way to counteract that gut feeling is for him to get up there and sob like a bitch. You know what I mean? Take responsibility for what you have done. Take full responsibility. I stole all these people's things. I feel horrible. Or maybe I don't feel horrible, but I can tell you this. I take responsibility for that, but I did not kill my wife and son. And the idea that somebody would sit here and say that I did is insane.
I'm writing down another.
If you want to put me in prison for 100 years, I'm probably going to get 100 years anyway on these financial crimes. So what am I doing by sitting here? Except I am not going to get up here and lie and say I did something I didn't do. I didn't kill my kid.
So a couple more comments and then we'll wrap this bad boy up. Coming from Albanian Anissa. She writes, so sad I missed this live. It wasn't live. Finally alive. It wasn't live. Showing the truth of this case. And there is not enough evidence to convict this man without a reasonable doubt. Thank you to Jack Swirling and Danny Ceballos for graciously giving us their legal genius minds. I appreciate it, coming from a law enthusiast that has learned so much over the past 2 years. I'll read the last line. I also thank Joel for bringing us this great content, STS Nation. So Anissa is thinking the way you think jurors might be thinking, which is there's just not enough evidence here to convict. Amy, I know I asked you this already, Amy with 2 E's, but I mean, time is of the essence now, right? With the state, and what do they really like? Looking at this on a granular level right now, if you're really focused on this, like, what is the one thing you would say to the state right now?
Start using demonstratives for the evidence that helps you. Talking about him, even today, I think Ronnie Crosby said he's always on his phone, and you know, and they put all these phone records up, and they're missing the point. And I'm very visual. Amy knows this. Like, I have to see it. Like, every crime scene, every alleged crime scene, I drive it, and it's funny. Yeah, I mean, I walk it, I drive it,
You've been in a motel.
I remember it, and I can't. There's what the state is missing with these phone records is not only do we have that 844 video, you know, and then when his car starts up, but there's a chunk of time around 20 minutes or so that he's not on his phone at all. And that's where the focus
calls in the car, but then he doesn't do anything for that 20 minutes.
And there's, yeah, I mean, and clearly once he gets in his car, he is steady calling people, texting people, setting that alibi, you know, and for that short period of time, and it doesn't take long to kill people with guns. It just doesn't. You know, they need to focus that he, you know, that they need to show the jury. They need to show the gaps. They need to see those phone records and times, and I'm hoping that they do that. I mean, I've sent suggestions, so
they're looking at this stuff in a vacuum, right? They're not accounting all the other things going on. And that's one of the good things that the associate attorney of Dick Harpootlian did when he was doing the phone records, because through his testimony or through his cross-examination of the phone records, you know, that's how we learned that here's Alex's phone going this way in the car and Maggie's phone going this way, right? Well, where does that fit in? What's going on, Creighton? Like, how you gonna get to that? How you gonna explain that away? Like, these are the things that people are asking. But we knew that because he was writing it out, right? He had that demonstrative up there. He had that big old notepad and he was taking those notes. But the state is looking at it in a vacuum. They're only seeing and they're not taking into account all this other stuff. But if they put it all together, because you can't explain it all away. Individually by itself, it's bullshit. But together, you can't just explain away all those things. It all adds up.
Where there's smoke, there's fire, the old adage goes. Lonnie, 2 more comments. This one is from you, Sinlig. And now this, to me, if I am a juror, is going to stick in my head too. Not all the minutia, not all the numbers about the financial evidence, but this. And you, Sinlig, writes, how likely is it that a quote-unquote normal person's cotton T-shirt would still smell freshly laundered after they had unwittingly stumbled upon the monstrously slaughtered bodies of their closest family members? Fear and horror would kick hormones into high gear, and a shirt would be loaded with acrid sweat. And that's at the very least. This laundered shirt, if I'm a juror and you're a former prosecutor, this is something I'm thinking about. Did this guy wash his clothes right after this, and why?
Yeah, I mean, I think that can be persuasive. It's interesting because it kind of goes both ways, right? I mean, there's the freshly laundered. There's also like, where's the blood? Where's the stuff? You know, if he had gotten up close,
that cop is lying about that smell. That cop is lying and bolstering their testimony. That is a lie. We watched him sweat like a damn pig. 3 hours, 1 a.m. in that car. He was pouring sweat. Sweat was drip. There is no way that shirt smelled like the fresh laundered. That comes off as bullshit.
Well, that's interesting because the DSR expert doubled down on it today. But I will say, I don't put a lot of weight in it. I kind of, whether you think it's lying or, which it could be. It's like that's kind of such a subjective thing, right? I mean, it's like, I'm not going to put a lot of weight on, did it smell like freshly laundered or not? Maybe they have, sometimes I put a lot of those little laundry balls in with my wash, and I put in too much, and it smells like that the whole time, no matter how long I wear it. So I'm not going to say that's the whole reason why you convict them or don't convict them. But that's an interesting thing that you think they're lying about that.
But also, if they're focusing on that,
there's a reason why.
Good Lord.
I know.
Why are we, why are we focusing on
it?
We watched him at 1 a.m. give that interview in the car. He is pouring the sweat, y'all. It's like dripping off of him. It was a hot in Colleton County, like near the coast. Like, we're near Charleston in South Carolina in June. It was hotter than hell, trust me. And the humidity was insane because it had rained. Right, it was raining.
His forehead, right, with the shirt, like
he's dripping. You can see it, like he's like sweating. But when juries hear that, who live in Colleton County, who have been in Colleton County in June, and they're seeing him like pouring the sweat and crying and stuff on the, they know better, and that makes them lose their credibility.
Yeah,
it's like
that's the problem. Yeah, that's the problem with arguing those little things. It's like you lose your credibility for the important stuff. They're not going to believe you on that.
Just trying to get the W, and they're willing to lie for it.
It's just like Alex refusing to admit that he was down at the kennels. Like, why lie about something stupid?
Own it.
To me, that's his credibility is gone.
When the guy from SLED testified about that whole I did him so dirty part, right? And then they slowed it down. And it's very clear. It doesn't take a fucking expert to understand that he said they did him so dirty or bad or whatever it was. They is the words. And when you slow it down, it becomes very obvious that it says
I hear I, but I don't. But
it's odd when you play it. Well, it's up in the air, but when you slow it down, it is clearly they, right?
Lonnie, what did you hear? What did you hear?
Double down. It said, "I see your eye." And you're like,
so I went back to the context of what he was talking about. So they just asked him, had he seen these really horrible pictures, I think, or something. And they were saying, I know they're really bad. And he goes, oh, they were so bad. I did. They were so bad. So I hear him saying, I did. I saw it. They were so bad. The pictures are so bad. So I hear an I and I hear, so it's not a confession to me. And the fact that they're going to, do not pin this whole case on that confession, because you asked 12 jurors, you're going to get 12 different opinions on what that meant.
Blue dress, gold dress.
Right. What color is the dress?
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
And one final comment.
Women to try these cases is what they need.
100%. I'm with you on that. Diversity. Get the women in there.
We're
you
much
guys.
better at everything.
Yeah. I would agree with that, and so would my wife. A final self-serving comment, and then we'll get some closing arguments. This comes from, I don't know who this is. I don't know how one single person has so much clout to get such pertinent, high-value guests like Lonnie, Amy, and Amy on a consistent basis. If there were a creator, manager, God, I'd be confident in saying that I believe that you could get them to participate in your podcast. I would love to speak to God if they are it, or she is available. But I bring that up. It takes a village here at Surviving the Survivor, and that is all Steve Cohen, my partner in true crime. He gets the best guests. Got me Lonnie, got me Amy, and gets me all of you guys. So a huge thanks to Steve Cohen, whose name rhymes with Meave Moen. It's an inside joke between him and I. And thank you guys for participating. Amy Zimmercheck, so you can get back to your work, but I want you to stay on till the end. Does this trial end in acquittal, hung jury, a conviction, and will there be bombshells, as they say in news, before it ends?
If the jury had to vote right now, I think that it would either be not guilty or a hung jury with the evidence that they have in front of them right now. I hope that there are more bombshells, or what people consider bombshells, to come. I hope so. just quite honestly, at the end, regardless of how I feel personally about what happened, I wasn't there, or how I feel about Alex Murdaugh, which I think I've been very clear on. I don't like him. I don't think he's good for the profession. I don't think he's been good for the state. I just don't think he's a good person. But at the end of the day, I always want to see justice, and so I hope that in the end the just thing happens, whatever the jurors decide that may be. And I know that's a lawyer answer, but honestly, it's one that I can live with.
And Amy Zimmercheck is the owner of AJZ Law in South Carolina. If you need to get out of a problem situation, she's the person to call. She'll never stop working for you, literally and figuratively. A super lawyer since 2019, 10 not guilties on felony cases since 2009. Next up, Amy Lawrence. She's best known as MTV's Teen Mom, being on MTV's Teen Mom 2, and also being a criminal defense attorney in her own right. Amy Lawrence, where do we go from here?
I mean, I think that these lawyers need to, I was hoping they were going to do it this weekend. I hope that they get their stuff together, right? And they tell a cohesive story and gather some steam on either side at this point.
Now she says stuff after dropping F-bombs for an hour.
I know. I can't not. I tried. I pray about it all the time. I can't stop. And I don't know if I want to either. I always say this, like, it's my hope that he did not kill his wife and son, right? Isn't that what we should all hope for? That it, like, factually, like, he really didn't do it. I just keep waiting for this moment, this moment that, like, really brings it into clarity, and I don't think we're going to get it. If we didn't get it, if we didn't get this clarity in the opening statement, and we haven't gotten it 3 weeks in, it's probably not coming, right? I really thought, like I said, I thought Ronnie Crosby was going to be this, like, confession of something, and instead it was, I didn't go to the kennel, or I took a nap, or whatever it might be, and I haven't gotten to that yet, and I think that everybody's going to want that. Like I said, I think we feel like he did it. I just don't think the evidence proves it, and I'm hoping that they kind of get it together. And I think that the defense should really, like, sit back, and when they bring up one after another, I mean, I think that they're responding to this stuff in a way they need to be very short and sweet. No question. Okay. He still thinks. Thank you. Yeah. No further questions. All right. He's guilty of stealing things. Thank you. You know what I mean? And just be very quick with it. And it makes a point to the jury when you do that this is not evidence of anybody killing anybody. And I'm hoping that they get, because this jury is going to get very tired sitting there day after day, and they're not getting to the point, and they're going to lose interest, and they keep leaning in, and the moment's not coming, and then they're just, like, disappointed. And I have a feeling it's going to be like that for the next couple of weeks. I hope they get it together.
Loni Coonbs is a former prosecutor. She's been on every network imaginable: CNN, Investigation Discovery, Oxygen, Today Show, The View, Access Hollywood, Dr. Phil. She's also covered more high-profile cases than I have teeth. Loni, does this end in a hung jury, an acquittal, a conviction? And with your very seasoned eye, what are you looking for in the next couple of days?
It's interesting because usually at this point in a trial, you'd have a better idea of where you're thinking it's headed. But I honestly think it could be any of those. It could be a conviction, a hung jury, or an acquittal. And honestly, the least likely at this point to me is a conviction. But I think there's a good chance of a hung or an acquittal. But I think there's still time. And what I hope happens is what Amy said. I hope that the prosecution starts using those demonstrative devices to really, you can't wait till the end and think you're going to tie it all together in the closing argument, because, like Amy Lawrence Lovely said, this jury is getting tired. I mean, they're leaning forward, waiting. By that point, you're like, oh, that's what that meant. Oh, whatever. You need to be doing it now. It's like they have all these puzzle pieces, but if you don't have the box to the butt of the puzzle that shows you what picture you're trying to come up with at the end, those pieces mean nothing. And right now there's a lot of extra pieces in there as well. So I hope that starts tomorrow, that they start really explaining it more. And I agree with the defense. I think the more the defense just says, no questions, they're going to show they're so confident in the lack of this. And then the prosecution keeps going on and on. They're going to look more and more desperate. Like we got to keep throwing things on the wall to see if something sticks. And the defense is going, whatever. I agree also with Amy with 2 E's in that I've always said this ever since I started, as a prosecutor back in the 80s. I want justice to happen. I want justice to happen, but I don't want it to be affected by the attorney's skill level, right? I want the attorneys to do a good enough job to present that evidence so that they can decide what is justice based on the evidence and what the evidence is telling them, not because the attorneys failed to, put it forward properly or help the jury to understand it properly. So that's what I hope.
For some weird reason, this reminds me of every time I get in a car with my 3 kids. Daddy, when are we going to be there? Daddy, are we there yet? Daddy, are we there yet? Daddy, are we? And I always say to them, we're going to be there when we get there. Same advice here. We're going to find out what the jury's thinking when they read their verdict. We can speculate from here to eternity, but it's fun to discuss. It's fun to think about it. And
I can tell you this, if they don't get there quickly, if we don't get to that destination quickly, there's going to be a meltdown somewhere along the way.
That's usually a bathroom stop on the side of the road in my analogy. But in any event, thank you all so much. A couple of quick programming notes. We're going to be live on the Alex Murdaugh trial all the way through to the end. Steve Cohen and I are going to head to South Carolina for it. So we're going to need to talk to both Amy's about where to stay. Live program this Friday with Phil and Gil. A live program every Sunday from now on with my lovely mother, Carmela. Carm on the case, as we call it. This week, we're going to do it earlier because of a little thing called the Super Bowl. But until then, love you, America.